At XY, we've been in stealth mode for the last 3 years. In that time, we've quietly built and perfected our product. We've raised $5 million, we've built an awesome team, and more recently, we've seen some gratifying traction in the market. Though before we delve too far into our solution, I'd like to talk a bit about why. Why do we exist? Why XY? XY Sense is not the first company I've co-founded. Back in 2007, with 2 others, I formed CeraView. We built a solution that helped organizations better manage their workplace, relocation management, wayfinding, and some other workplace tools. Over the years, CeraView grew to bring on many customers and organizations across Australia with telcos, much of the federal government, state government, and there's a similar story internationally with Europe and the States. In 2016, we're a team of around 90 people. Employee number 8 at CeraView was Luke Murray. Luke built much of CeraView's product, and him and I were at the cold face of our customers' problems. A burning problem that kept rearing itself was understanding utilization, and for good reason. Real estate teams need to manage their properties. It's actually really hard to do this without having accurate information at your fingertips that you can trust. Utilization. Real estate is typically a company's 2nd or 3rd biggest expense behind people's wages and technology. And yet there was a data vacuum to help with strategy and operations. Global studies pre-COVID have shown that offices are typically only over 60% full on average. That means that nearly half of the building is empty at any time. Since COVID, that's an even bigger problem, as we have seen return to office, and COVID has meant that offices are actually quite empty. Once COVID has been extinguished, and we hope that it will be soon, we predict an even lower utilization rate. To put that in perspective, here are 2 examples of how much empty space can cost every year. On the right, we see a typical organisation in Australia. At standard rates per desk, we're talking about $100 million spent on empty office space every year. With offices mothballed right now, we're talking potentially a multiple on that. But 100% utilisation is not the answer. An office is designed to enable people to do their jobs. It's an extension of an organisation's brand and culture. On the left, we can see a near empty office. You can sit where you want, collaborate easily, walk into any meeting room, there is little friction. On the right, an overcrowded office has a low cost per employee, but in isolation, the missing point. It's much harder for people to do their jobs with a lot of friction in the workplace. Our goal is to help organizations find the sweet spot between optimizing utilization and creating the best experience for its people. With all of this defining a huge problem, Luke and I decided to step away from CeraView and form XY Sense. First up, we looked at what solutions were out there. Each of them really had shortcomings, from some being big brother pushback with under-desk sensors, to trusting in the data issues, to forcing people to change how they behave, and a big one, cost. All of these were reasons why technology hasn't been widely adopted. So we set about and defined these design principles to guide our solution. They became our holy grail of utilization. First up, passive data. We didn't want people to have to change what they did in the workplace. We wanted to understand what people were doing, regardless of what we were doing. So to do that, that meant people didn't have to carry a tag, have to enable Bluetooth on their phone, or do anything different. We wanted to sit passively and understand what was going on. We needed to understand people's positions anonymously, so so we could identify them at a desk. So pinpoint positional accuracy. We want to know not just how desks were being used, not just how meeting rooms were used, but how the entire space was being used. So we needed to cover and understand the whole space. And we also didn't want to miss out on people who were contractors, say. We often heard stories of, oh, it looks like we're only using 50% of the space, but 20% of us were Accenture contractors. So that's a common example of where we would like to understand everyone who's working in the office. Privacy. Privacy is always a huge component for us, and we spend a lot of years engineering our privacy to make sure that we are secure and private. And everything we capture is anonymous. The last guiding principle was cost effectiveness. We didn't want to just do small pilots. We believe this is a big enough problem that we needed to help people ongoing with their requirements. So be affordable enough to roll out to a portfolio. At the start of our journey, we stepped back and looked at all the possible technologies we could use, from tech that could actually measure chest displacement to thermal cameras. We looked at literally everything. And at the time, deep learning and artificial intelligence, machine learning, was really coming to the fore as a breakthrough technology. Today, we don't even notice, but it's everywhere. AI and computer vision was the right technology for us, but that didn't make it easy. We had one expert try and talk us out of what we were doing and told us that we'd actually melt the chip. That just made us more determined. We ended up with a sensor that can understand people movement in space, regardless of what they're carrying or doing. Privacy was always number one for us. All sightings are anonymous. We use computer vision, but all processing is done on a tiny supercomputer in every sensor. No images are stored or saved or sent anywhere. All that leaves the sensor is anonymous XY coordinates. And that's why we call ourselves XY Sense. Our sensors have pinpoint accuracy, with sightings mostly within 30 centimeters and within 1 meter in general. This enables us to understand which desks or seats in a meeting room or in the office floor are being used. For a typical 20-story building, we'll actually capture around 10 billion data points every year. And yet every sighting that is captured arrives in real time in the cloud that can be viewed within 2 seconds. One person actually said to us, wow, you guys actually are real time, and this is amazing information. And you'll see shortly with a demo from Luke what we mean by that. Our sensor has the largest range in the market. We typically see that we require about 1.5 to 3 times fewer sensors to deliver the same results or better. Lastly, with that high fidelity data captured, we make that available to third parties via an API, but a big part of our offering is our cloud analytics platform. We have a BI tool built in, which we continually add new dashboards and resources to. We have a data science team, and we'll be demonstrating this shortly. So, how do our sensors work? They're deployed across different spaces. You can see we've got sensors here in meeting rooms, across desks, and they're all cabled together back to a hub. The sensors require line of sight. So if you can't see the sensor, it can't see you, but we can see through clear windows. They're cabled together in a chain and connected to a 4G hub, avoiding the customer's network unless requested otherwise. The cables actually are Cat5 or higher, and they provide power and data. We daisy chain them together, and we can chain up to 12 in one branch and 48 to a hub, which means on average a floor has 30 sensors, so you require roughly 1 hub. I did that because cabling every single sensor back to a comms room was very expensive, and it's far easier to daisy chain sensors together with a small, shorter cable. All this information gets sent through to the cloud, where we have an API feed for third-party consumers. We have our own analytics platform, and so we have that real-time feed. We occasionally get asked about our battery-powered sensors. Do we have them? Our answer is that for a permanent installation, batteries can have a big negative impact on the environment. For example, if you were to deploy sensors across a multi-building organization, you would need approximately 0.5 to 1 ton of batteries. These batteries are typically not rechargeable, as rechargeable batteries don't have enough energy stored to power sensors like these. You then need to replace the batteries in 1 to 2 years' time. Most buildings we see are very energy efficient with 6-star ratings, not uncommon. It is far better to link to that power source than provide a disposable one. This is a screenshot from our quotation tool where we position our sensors on the floor plan to show a deployment layout. Our sensors are 95 square meters range. So you can see the blue circle, there's 2 sensors there. The blue square is a sensor and the blue circle is the range of the sensor. And it's easily covering 16 desks, each sensor. This is the biggest range in the market comfortably. Actually overlap the sensors, but it doesn't double count. So if I'm standing in the middle there between the 2 sensors, it won't double count me. We deduplicate that in the cloud. So we've covered the why and the how it works. There's also the question that we get, well, obviously, how much does it cost? Organizations where we can add the most value are primarily 500 seats over, all the way up to global enterprises. We can go into more details and price if you contact us after. However, price does depend on the number of sensors and what spaces are being covered. Typically, we have an upfront purchase of our sensor hardware and a fee for installation. Then there's a subscription to our analytics ongoing, and that includes all updates to our cloud and our sensor. Think of each sensor as a mini supercomputer. We monitor them for uptime and we're able to upgrade them remotely with functionality. Lastly, we do support shorter term pilots and have had very high conversion from pilots to permanent installations. So what does the output look like in the cloud? What we can see here is a time-lapse view from an office when it was actually busy back in the day. Every 2 seconds, every sensor sends their sightings to the cloud, and we collate it and show a real-time view. You can see we're covering usage of different space here, and you can also see the accuracy of positioning. This view really builds trust in the data. As you'll see shortly with a illustration from Luke, this is really, truly real-time. We've had meetings with lines of business where people move around and witness the heat map change live. Then there's no dispute about the analytics and the data that this is built on top of. With this data as a building block, we offer 2 sets of tools for different audience. One audience is end users of the office space. So people who use the office daily. We aim to make their lives easier. We have built tools designed for the workplace to show free seats. This view updates automatically when someone sits down within 2 seconds. And we have a range of other views that we offer to the end user, all designed to make their lives easier and reduce the friction in the workplace. Using a BI tool embedded in our application, we're able to make sense of all these billions of data points. We present the information from a 10,000-foot view all the way down to an individual space. Our data science lead Ad will take you through this shortly. But before we see our analytics, I'm going to hand over to Luke, who's going to show off our real-time sensor view. There's no smoke and mirrors in this demonstration. With COVID in place and today being probably the last day that Luke could legitimately be in the office for this, Luke is actually by himself. So over to you, Luke.
Thanks, Alex. Hi, everyone. As Alex said, my name is Luke and I'm the CTO here at XYSense. And Mark's up on the last day that we can be in our office. I'm going to give a demo of the real-time nature and the positional accuracy of our sensor. So Alex has just loaded our floor plan here in our office. And we have the boardroom here. And it's quite small, but there's a little blue square down the bottom of the floor plan, which is actually that white sensor up there on the ceiling. And you'll see that it has me positioned in the middle of these desks, and there's a chair next to me. Now, our sensors use advanced AI to capture the position of people using the space. This means that we understand how people are using the space and not how devices are using the space. And we can position that to under 30 centimeters of their location on the floor plan. You'll see I just moved to the door here, and you'll see the heat map update. It was brighter where I was standing there longer. As I stand here, the heat map is getting brighter. Hopefully you can see the door just behind me, which is where I'm standing. And we spent years engineering these sensors with privacy and security in mind, as Alex said before. The sensors process all of this scene information on the devices. It's like the sensor is the brain, the supercomputer, and no images or scene information is ever stored on or ever leaves the sensor. And as Alex flagged before, the sensor itself only sends out anonymous XY coordinates. And even this anonymous location data is encrypted when securely transmitted via our 4G or the corporate network to our cloud platform. However, it doesn't stop there. Our cloud platform takes this accurate positional information from each sensor and actually stitches that together, enabling full floor plan coverage without duplicates. This is what we call the sightings data. The sightings data is then compared against mapped spaces on the floor to build a real-time view of occupancy of the different spaces, whether that's project spaces, meeting rooms, or individual work points. All of this information is available via our real-time API, which powers live kiosks, like the ones Alex showed before for lift lobbies or building lobbies, as well as integrations into booking systems and smart building systems. And of course, the XYSense analytics platform uses this data to update our customer dashboards. Now, as you've just seen and we've mentioned, all of this happens in near real time, with updates being delivered to the platform every 2 seconds. This means customers can really see the live movement in real time. And that really helps gain trust in the data, especially when you're looking at historical views or aggregated dashboards to understand where that data came from and how it was collected. Gives real trust in the data, especially when you're having conversations with departments of heads about the last 6 months of usage. Alex just quickly switched over to our spaces view, which will load shortly. So in our boardroom, you could just map this as a meeting room, but just for the demonstration, I mapped it as individual work points. So you can see that I am using this work point and the others are available. And if you switch us over to the other view, this work point is unavailable. So that shows the mapping from the sightings, which was me walking around a room, to map spaces. Now, the team have worked incredibly hard to engineer a solution that we believe to be the most advanced on the market. And when it comes down to it, the reason for all this technology is to deliver you, our customers, the most accurate data possible in the most timely fashion, so that you can use it to make informed decisions around space and office use, especially as you start to plan out your return to work strategies. The real-time sightings are just the building block for our robust and accurate analytics that can be aggregated at all different levels, from a global view down to regional buildings or floors, and across time as well, from years, months, to even right now. With that in mind, I'd like to pass over to Ad, our data science lead, who'll be giving a deep dive into our customer platform that presents all this powerful data in intuitive and customizable dashboards, saving you time and effort. There's no need to manually bring data sets together or bring in a consultant every time you need a report. Ad, over to you.
Thanks, Luke. Hi, everyone. My name is Ad, and I'm the data science lead here at XY Sense. I work with our customer teams to ensure that they're deriving insights and actionable business outcomes from the rich data that our sensors collect. Now, today, I'll be giving you a quick walkthrough of some of the different types of analytics and dashboards which are available in the XY Sense customer data platform. You'll see how XY Sense makes it possible for property teams to understand their real estate, starting from a 10,000-foot global portfolio view, and then drilling right down into individual desk analytics. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. Now, this is what a global portfolio dashboard typically looks like in the XY Sense data platform. You'll see that, or just a side note, first of all, that all the data that you're about to see in this demonstration has been simulated for illustration purposes. Now, for a portfolio manager overseeing real estate from all over the world, it is crucial to have KPIs such as your overall utilization and the cost of your unutilized space available at your fingertips. In this example, we see how the dashboard breaks that down by work points or fixed desk, as well as collaboration spaces. We can also see that the utilization is broken down into region and country. We can also see utilization being broken down into time, which is something that Luke alluded to. And this is very easily filterable using the dashboard filters provided. So for example, we can specify a specific region of interest. So I'm taking a look at APAC currently. And for the purpose of a quarterly report, I can actually change the granularity of my data very simply like this. And here we have a quarterly report where we can very clearly see that Australia happens to be the lowest utilized country in the region. So let's take a deeper dive and see exactly what's going on down under. So for a national portfolio manager, it's once again important to have the same utilization and cost KPIs. But then you importantly want to break that down by building and floor. Clearly, COVID has had a considerable impact on utilization, and it's created a huge trough, which you can see here in the data. So having data per building and floor allows you to determine which areas are the most or least utilized for the purpose of future lease renewals, or in some cases, even portfolio downsizing. Tracking utilization with time is also a great way to ensure that each building or floor is undergoing a smooth return to work. Now, interestingly, we can drill into a specific period in time and monitor this directly. So you can see here that in the month of June, our portfolio average was 36%, but there's actually a distribution consisting of each location in the portfolio. So you can see here that level 2 of the Melbourne office is only 25% occupied, Whereas in comparison, the Perth office is actually rebounded back to 52%. So clearly COVID is having a lasting impact on the Melbourne office. So let's take a deeper dive and understand exactly what's going on a building and floor level inside level 2 of the Melbourne office. Now, we'll start off with the work points or fixed desks. Now, for a space or occupancy planner, some of the questions you might be asked during or even post-COVID are, how many desks are still being utilized on a regular basis? How long are those desks used for? And what is my peak day-to-day? Now, clearly, you no longer need to rely on ad hoc utilization studies to answer these questions, because with XY Sense, each question now has a reliable data-driven answer. So we can clearly see that level 2 of the Melbourne office has been heavily impacted by COVID, now seeing only 10 to 20 desks being used out of a total of 70, and that's reflected in an average utilization rate of 33%. So clearly, there are no problems finding a seat. But this is still really useful data to have on hand right now, because we can proactively plan a safe return to work strategy where, for example, we can implement a 1 in every 2 desks should be used. If we still had 50 to 60 work points being active out of a total of 70, we would have to rethink how we implement a safe return to work strategy. We can also see that most desks here are being utilized between 0 and 1 hour every day. And this means that they're serving more of a touchdown functionality, where people might come to work, they might dump their things on their desk, and then they might choose to work somewhere else. The black line here shows peak capacity per day. And this is also a really useful metric to track for the purpose of future headcount expansion or headcount reduction planning. It's also very topical now because several workplaces are undergoing capacity limits. So this is a very useful metric to track. Something else worth noting is that we can keep track of when you can expect this peak to occur. And that's either intraday, so you can expect a peak in the morning, afternoon, or evening, or even comparing several different days of the week. So do you expect a peak to occur on Mondays or Fridays? And this is really useful to plan out when is the most suitable time to organize cleaning. Now we can also see a similar view being provided per neighborhood. So this is very useful to track which teams or which neighborhoods have been most or least affected by COVID. And finally, we can see a heat map utilization view, which shows which areas of my floor have been the most and the least congregated. And once again, this is really useful to know to organize for which areas need the most deep cleaning. Now, because XY Sense sensors capture utilization data across entire office floors, rather than being associated with individual desks or tags that are carried around by team members, we can actually deliver very powerful data about shared collaboration spaces, such as kitchens, breakout spaces, or even stand-up desks. Now, as companies around the world transition from a fixed desk environment to a more flexible environment, we know that there can be challenges for employees. Now, pre-COVID, this meant that it might have been impossible to find a meeting room in certain workplaces, and they even had to be booked weeks in advance. And this clearly has a negative impact on productivity. But during COVID, this might not be so much of a problem. But a more apparent question is, which spaces are employees choosing to work in? For example, are people choosing to work in meeting rooms, project spaces, or even booth areas that might be provided in a kitchen? Now, clearly, in level 2 of the Melbourne office, over the past 2 months, we have once again seen a trough in the data or the amount of collaboration spaces being used. But what's arguably more interesting to look at is the fact that pre-COVID, we can see that breakout and booth areas were pretty popular on a regular basis, on a daily basis. But now they're almost seeing no usage whatsoever. And people are preferring to work in perhaps smaller size meeting rooms or project spaces. So this is just some of the data that's possible that we can extract. Once again, we can break down utilization into several different fields, such as room size. So we can actually see whether people are preferring to congregate in small or large size meeting rooms. And very clearly, you can see here that people are sticking with smaller sized rooms. Now, this is also made apparent if we take a look at meeting room analytics. So this is looking at things like how long on average are your meetings lasting for? How many occupants are we expecting inside each meeting? And one thing which is very interesting is that we can actually drill into the distribution of meetings that we've seen. So over the past 3 months in level 2 of the Melbourne office, there's only been one meeting with a total of 5 occupants. So very clearly, we have rooms with capacity of 8s and 10s, but there's only been 5 people one time. And in contrast, there's been 248 sightings of just one person in a meeting room. So this suggests that perhaps the space needs more dedicated focus rooms or phone booths that are dedicated for single person use. Now, it's worth noting that all of these dashboards that I've shown you today can be exported either to a PDF, they can be downloaded as raw CSV files, or as Luke and Alex both alluded to earlier, we actually have a real-time occupancy API so that you can extract the raw data and you can use it to create whatever visualization or whatever dashboard that you deem useful. Now, at XY Sense, we know that sensor data is only as good as what you can do with it. So obviously, in addition to being able to access our pre-built dashboards, you can take advantage of that API. Now, I hope you enjoyed this little snapshot of the types of data and workplace analytics which XY Sense makes possible for teams. While our sensors have been designed to be the most advanced on the market, what matters most to us is putting powerful data in the hands of our customers so that they can optimize their workplaces and be more productive. Thanks a lot for your attention. I'll now pass it back to Alex.
Thanks, Ad and Luke. It's great to see a live demo and our powerful analytics. Offices have been relatively empty recently, which hasn't given us the best opportunity to showcase real-time live. I'm actually in Hawthorne and our office is in Cremorne. So we were streaming from the office to the cloud, to my laptop, to the world. Now we've seen our product in action, both with the real-time feed and analytics. I'd like to talk about some common applications. You can see on the screen different ways we can add value. I'll delve into some of these use cases now. When an organization moves into a new building, it is a huge event representing a lot of work for many parties. There's a large amount of excitement for people moving and a large amount of work by a huge team to make it to that point. We are seeing our sensors deployed in new buildings to help provide insights about how that space is being used. Understanding exactly which types of spaces, areas are a success and which areas need tweaking forms part of the value that we can offer. But there's much more to it than that. Teams have been allocated desks in fixed or flexible space. We help to provide insights into the experience for the teams there, where there is overcrowding, where there's an opportunity to use fewer desks. Meeting rooms are also a big point of contention. Are bookings being managed appropriately? Does the capacity of the rooms booked actually match the number of people attending? By understanding attendee versus invite count, we can suggest adjustments for repeat bookings. We can help maximize the availability of the right rooms ongoing. Another thing we're seeing is transitioning from fixed to flex, or optimizing flex environments where the sweet spot hasn't been hit yet. By understanding teams, neighborhoods, actual usage with their peaks and troughs, we can simulate when and how often that space would overflow and which nearby regions are available to accommodate. Teams' pushback with activity-based working or free seating is often that'll impact their way of working. They fear that they won't be able to collaborate with their colleagues. They won't be able to find a free seat. We can provide simulations which show how much space a team would actually occupy and alleviate those fears. Luke demonstrated earlier our sensors' pinpoint accuracy and true real-time capability. When you put these two items together, we can use that to quickly identify breaches of social distance. And that's something that has becoming increasingly popular. We can set up alerts for when people have spent more than an allocated time within a certain distance, and you can assign a phone number for an area of a floor plan to send a text message alert. This is the same for open seating areas as well as meeting rooms. So another element to our offering is dynamic e-ink labels at the desk. These labels, and if you can see my video, I'll hold up one now. They're quite small and light. These labels are originally designed for supermarket shelves to display prices. They're extremely easy to install, extremely low power, and in battery speak, about 120 kilograms of battery for 20,000 seats for 5 years, so far fewer than to power sensors. We can show desk names, booked occupant names, social distancing breach warnings, and a heap of non-COVID related items. We've integrated these into our solution mainly to solve the following two problems. One, how could we alert people in an office about social distancing when they forget that they're too close? So it's all very well for our sensors up in the ceiling to identify that two people in close proximity. Perhaps sending a text message is one way of doing it. However, we can actually identify and alert those nearby by updating the label with the social distance warning. And a second thing that's quite common is with return to office, desk booking seems to be the most popular choice to manage supply versus demand. But how can we improve the desk booking process by helping people find their seat more easily? It's all very well to have a booked desk, but to use a phone on a floor plan to try and find a seat that you've been assigned isn't that easy. And what happens if, like in the cinema or on a plane, you arrive at the desk and someone's sitting there? Because of risk of infection, that space actually needs to be cleaned, or you need to go sit somewhere else. So it's not as simple as you're in my seat. So it's far easier to actually look for your name, as we can see example here, Jenny Turner. So I could walk around if I'm Jenny and find the seat that matches my name. Now, we don't do desk booking ourselves, but we integrate with other desk booking platforms. Our last case study is what we believe to be one of the most important ones. We now have a global workforce where people are unable to work from out of the office more so than ever before. We have teams who have proven that they're as or even more productive working remotely. At home, we also, on the flip side, have a mix of small houses, non-ergonomic environments, kids playing piano in the middle of important meetings. So this is the last day of childcare for my daughter, 4-year-old. And I actually had to install a lock on the door over there because in many meetings, she's been playing that piano. So there are distractions at home. But we have the good and the bad, but all of this data together and numerous studies show that the world is ready to work differently when the COVID threat is extinguished. There is still a need for people to collaborate. There's still a need for the next generation to learn from their current leaders face to face. And there is still a need for chance encounters and spaces to encourage ideation. What we do know is things will be different. And there is a huge opportunity to downsize real estate footprint and potentially redesign existing spaces. This could mean tens of millions of dollars in savings. However, it's best to understand space usage and observe how things have changed so we can resize accordingly. We call it measuring before acting, and we think it's incredibly important to maximize workplace effectiveness.